Okay, so here's where we're going to go ahead and work with our paper. So make sure you're on side A as we're working through this. Side B is your practice, independent practice. So here we have a set of coordinates. So we're also going to be going through and giving the coordinates. We're going to draw this and we're going to give the coordinates. So the first two, we'll just go ahead and do the drawing. And the second two, we will go through and actually do the drawing and the coordinate sets. So here, when I work with reflections, I tend to go ahead and pick my points and then count the same distance over whatever line they're talking about. So on this, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to what line they want us to use for our reflection. So here it says reflect the shape over the x-axis. So reminder, this is our x-axis, this is our y-axis. Okay, so they want us to flip it, reflect it, over that x-axis. So this is our line of reflection that we're going to use here. Okay, so when I'm doing this, I take my points and I just count. So I'll go ahead and start with my points that are closest to the line of reflection because it's less counting. So I'm going to count this first one out so that you can actually see me touching the screen. And then after that, I'm probably not going to be doing that because it looks visually more confusing. But for the first two, I'll go ahead and do that. So here, if I reflect my yellow point, I'm going to go 1, 2 to get to my line of reflection. So I'm going to continue that pattern on the other side of the line of reflection. 1, 2. So there's my new yellow point. Okay, so you're doing that far right point that's closest to the line of reflection. So now I'll go ahead and do that same thing. This time I'll go ahead and do the blue. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and count from my blue point, which is right here. Okay, so I'll change to my black point again. So now if I count it for my blue point here, I'm going to go ahead and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To get to my line of reflection, I'm going to go ahead and count that out the same on the opposite side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's my new blue dot. Okay, so that's one method that you can do to go through and count them out, is to count out. And I'm going to erase that yellow dot for just a second, put it back on. Okay, so you can count out from each and every single point, or you can reflect one point and then count it. So here, if I wanted to now work off of my reflection, I can either continue to do what I was doing, or to do my red point, I could go ahead and do this process. It was 1, 2 places away from my yellow. So 1, 2 places away from my yellow. Okay, so now if I wanted to go through and do my green point, I could count it out doing it this way. Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 up, and then 1 to the left. So I could do that up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 to the left. Okay, so you could go through and do that process, and you'll notice that when I do that, and on this one, I'm going to go ahead and use a straight edge, and on the future ones, I'll be using my marker, just because it's faster for me to erase it. Okay, so you can see I have a reflection. Those two figures look the same, but where I've just flipped it over the line. So you have to decide what you are most comfortable with. Do you prefer to count every single one from the original? That's okay. Sometimes it's just more counting for those ones that are further away from the line of reflection. Or you can go ahead and reflect one point and then just follow the steps away from that point on each figure. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one. And on your worksheet, once again, we're on the first two, we're not going to do our coordinates. On the next ones, we will go ahead and do the coordinates. Oops. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull our number 2 out here. So once again, our first step is to look and see which line they want us to reflect over. And that's usually the most common thing is you get going so fast, you just want to work through it and you forget to look at that line of reflection. So here, remember, this is our X line. This is our Y line up here. This time they want us to flip it over the Y axis. Okay, so that means we're flipping it over this line right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the point that's closest to that line of reflection, because remember, when you reflect, your points that are closest are the ones that should also be closest on the other side. So here I'm 2 places on this yellow away from the line of reflection. So I'm going to go 2 places. 1, 2. There's my new point for yellow. Okay. If I want to continue that pattern, I can. So for my blue one, it looks like we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 from the line of reflection. So I'm going to go ahead and do that also. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's my new blue dot. And for me, just because I second guess myself, I like to go ahead and just count out each point to the reflection line and then recount it. Some people are comfortable with counting one of them and then transferring. I'm always afraid I'm going to make a mistake on that, so I tend to just count each and every point out. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our red. So my red is 3 points or 3 spaces away from the line of reflection. So 3 spaces puts my new red point there. And then my last one is, it looks like it's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 places away. So 10 for that green one is right back here. And take note, as I did this, I stayed on the same line. I didn't have to change lines. If I choose to count out from each point, I'm just counting over on the exact same line of the coordinate plane. It's when I have to switch, if I choose to count it from one point of the reflection and then count out instead of doing each and every single point, that I'm going to have to understand how to transfer between different lines. And that's probably why I more so prefer to count from each line, is just, to me, it's a lot easier. Okay, so now if I go through and I connect these, I am going to get a mirror image. Take note, it's the same shape. It's just flipped over. Okay, my point that was closest to the line of reflection, which was this point right here, is closest to the line of reflection. When I'm counting out and then counting on the other side of that line of reflection, the same number of places, it's going to create a reflection. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this process. Only this time we're going to go ahead and also do the coordinates. Okay, so our number 3 on our next one. So we're going to go ahead, and here it gives us the coordinates for each of these. So I'll go ahead and identify. My red was my A. My green, it looks like, is my B. Letter C is over to 10 up to 10. That's my blue point on the screen. And then my yellow point is my D. So for you guys, I'll go ahead and label those. So this is my A, this is my B, C, and D. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and reflect this. So it looks like A is right. First of all, I do have to check my line of reflection, and they want us to use X. So they want us to flip over this line. Okay, so it looks like A and B are right on the lines. So those are going to stay in their same positions. I don't have to move anything. They're going to stay exactly where they're at. So these coordinate sets are going to be the same. Those are not going to change. Okay, so now if I go ahead and I reflect my D, it looks to me like D is 10 places away from my line of reflection. So I'm going to follow that line down, and I'm going to go 10 places, which puts me right here. So there's my new D. And then I'm going to do the same concept with my C. Now this one's pretty easy because they use the extreme ends of that coordinate, that location, that upper right-hand coordinate, quadrant 1. Okay, so now if I go ahead and do my C, it's 10 places away. So I'm going to follow that line, and I'm going to go 10 places away. Okay, so this is my C. So now I can go ahead and connect those. And I'm just going to use you guys should be using a straight edge on these, but I'm going to go ahead and just use my marker. Okay, so there it looks like it's reflected. So same shape. It's just reflected over the line, flip down. Okay, so now to do my coordinate set. So off to the side of your paper, I believe it says like number 3A, B, C, and D. So for 3A, Our new coordinates are still going to be the same because these positions right here did not move because they were on the line of reflection. So it's 0, 0. 3B, well, it was the same once again because it was on the line of reflection. So that was 7, 0. Okay, 3C, my coordinates of that, well, I have to now count this out. And remember, your coordinate planes are not labeled. You're going to have to go ahead and count them. This right here is our origin. So I'm going to go over to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It looks like these coordinates are set up, or coordinate planes are set up by 10. It's a 10 by 10 in each quadrant. So now if I go, I'm going to go over to 10, oops, and then down to -10. And then for 3D, sorry, I put CD instead of 3D. My coordinate set there, well, I went over to 5 and down to -10 again. Okay, so there's my new coordinates for that reflection. So sometimes I'm just going to ask you to draw it. Sometimes I'm going to ask you to identify those coordinates. So getting you back into reading coordinates and having to write out coordinates. So reviewing things that you did back in 6th grade as well as earlier this year in 7th grade. Okay, so let's go ahead and try number 4. Okay, so number 4, nice thing is there's only 3 points, so it'll be a little bit faster. So the first step is we want to go ahead. I'm going to mark off what's what here. So over to -4 up to 1. So my A is the red point. -3 up to 6, over to -3 up to 6, that's my green point. And over to -7 up to 5 then is my yellow point. Okay, you're on a black and white page, so I'll go ahead and mark those. This is A, this is B, and this is C. Okay, so now I need to make sure that I identify which line or line of reflection they want us to use, and they want us to use the the y-axis. So we're flipping over this line. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and count everything out. So for A, it looks like we're 4 places away from the line of reflection. So I'm going to count out 4 on the other side of the Y. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my new A. For B, and I'm staying on that same line. For B, I am 3 places away. So 1, 2, 3 on the same line. And for C, it looks like we're 7 places away. So count out 7 on the same line, 5, 6, 7. There's my new C. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and connect our points. Once again, you should be using a straight edge just to make it look like it is the same figure. Okay, so now if I go ahead and I do my new coordinates, well, for this on your side of your paper, it should say 4A. Okay, so we're going to give the coordinate sets of our new A, which is my red up here. Well, I had to go over to 4 and up to 1. Okay, for my B, which is the green one that I have up here. So for 4B, the coordinates are over to 3, up to 6, and then for C, looks like we had to go over to 7 and up to 5. Okay, and take note that anytime you do reflection, you're going to have one of your sets of or pieces of your coordinate set the same. So take note here that my Y's were the same as my Y's here. It's going to depend on which line you flip over. So when you flip over the y-axis, then all of your Y's are going to be the same. Your X's are going to be the opposites. Notice how here I had -4, 3, and 7, and in this set I had +4, 3, and 7. Okay, so that's kind of a self-check thing. You should still be in reflections. You should still have the same numbers. It's just that sometimes one set's going to change to a negative and the other set's going to be exactly the same. Okay, it depends on which line of reflection they're giving you. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. So the key thing to understand about reflections, they are the same shape that is exactly the same size. Make sure that you're paying attention to which line that they would like you to reflect over, because that's the most common mistake made when you're working on a coordinate plane is you flip over the wrong line. So make sure that you're identifying which line you're needing to flip over. But for the most part, remember to count out the same number of places from your original figure to the line of reflection, and then from the line of reflection to where your new figure is going to be. Good luck with this one.